right, well, we'll get started. Welcome everybody to this evening's webinar on recruiting with Bill Manning. We've had a super reaction to the advertising for this webinar, and we actually had to close out registration about a week ago. We had 500 registrants in that very short period, so we're super excited that you guys are able to be available. And we're going to dive straight in. Bill Manning is our presenter for today from Princeton University, and has been involved with many of our national teams back to the early 2000s. Currently, Bill, you have your hands full with our lightweight under 23 men's quad there in Princeton. So I'm sure you'll weave some of your magic into how that's all going. But today we're gonna talk specifically about college recruiting, and there have been lots of questions, Bill, about the process, and you are probably one of the best people around to talk to us about what to say, mistakes people can avoid making, and some questions to ask. They're by far the two areas that people seem to be most interested in. Then maybe dive under the hood there and tell us a little bit about what strategies you guys use as coaches to make decisions on recruiting. Before we dive in, I just want to let everyone know there is a question and answer function here. So at any point you have any questions that you want to share with us, please post them. And if we don't get to them during the 30 minutes here that Bill's going to be presenting, then we'll be sure to get back to you after the webinar. This webinar will be recorded, so that if you want to get back to it, you can to re-listen. And then also we're going to have Patrick Scholkers, who's also on the line. He's going to talk to you a little bit about Captain U and some of the resources out there for you all to be able to access. So Bill and Patrick, thanks for joining us. Bill, how are things going over in Princeton?
Well, things are good, Cam. And you're right. I'm working with a lightweight men's quad under 23, a lot of college age athletes, and it ties in somewhat as an introduction to the recruiting, because I'm working with 4 athletes that I wish I had recruited and were working with as my students at the university, but either I missed out on identifying them, or they found other places that were more attractive for themselves, probably a little of both. But it does show you how imprecise and unscientific this whole process is. It's not quite an art. That would imply, I think, a degree of creativity that doesn't exist, but it is highly individualistic, and there's a lot of randomness to it. So what both parties are doing, what the coaches are trying to do, is play the odds and make the best decisions they can. I think to a large degree that's also what the student athletes are trying to do, is picture themselves 4 years down the road as far as where they're going to be best served and where they're going to be happiest.
Right, Bill. Well, I know you've written a lot on this topic. The Rowing magazine has, I don't want to say dozens, but there's a lot of really good information out there. Everything from what to say, everything about visits, some specific information about coxswains. But do you want to just start off here, just talking a little bit about the mistakes people can avoid making, and what is it that they really should be focusing on when they're talking to college coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that mistake is a strong word. I would say missed opportunity might be a better way of phrasing it, but the truth is there are things that people commonly do that are hindering the process for them. And I think one of the most common ones is that they often have too narrow of a search, that as juniors in high school or seniors in high school, they might just be too narrowly focused. It's thinking they know already exactly what type of university they'd like to attend, what type of college, whether it's in a certain athletic conference or has a certain name recognition. And by virtue of that, they really do not explore options that would be very, very suitable for them. And I think it's your best to start out with a very broad list and be open to new ideas and receptive to people's input, and not just approach this with just the names of the places that you've heard about previously.
Right. When is too early to make contact?
Contact, in terms of the rules, sort of the typical new contact period is immediately following sophomore year. If the student's ready to make contact before that, that's absolutely fine, and they should feel comfortable doing so, appreciating that they're not going to get much in the way of response, and also being very, very certain that they update the information that they provide. So the universities, the colleges are ready to receive, they're ready to hear from you when you're ready to reach out. At the other end, you should not assume that it's too late. You know, if you're into senior year and you're finding that you love rowing more than you thought, and you want to continue with it more than you might have anticipated previously, do not assume that you've missed the bus. Reach out. More than likely, you're going to find some places that are still very interested and very available.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, because I think probably the biggest challenge a lot of people face is just getting going. Once they get going, they get a bit of momentum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot like writing a paper. You know, it's really, really scary until you start putting words down, and then once you start getting into it, then you'll find the college coaches will help walk you through it too. They'll tell you what they're looking for. They'll tell you what they need from you. They'll tell you when and how. But if they don't know about you, if they haven't heard from you, then there's no way for them to give you that advice.
Sure. Is there an etiquette or a best way of communicating? I know a lot of people have questions about email etiquette. Is email the best point of contact? How do you advise people on making contact initially?
Yeah, I do. I think email in a professional context, it's the easiest. It's certainly what most people use, both on the student side and on the coach's side. It allows you to reach a lot of different places without having to personalize things too much. It obviously speeds the response, but recognize that while you might be texting your friends or shooting an email or a Facebook message back and forth with your friends, and you're quite casual with your grammar and your punctuation and word choice, when you're communicating with a college coach, it's a professional communication, and that communication and how you conduct it is going to reflect upon you and the opinion they form of you. So, it's appropriate to address them with some respect, coach, coach or Mr. or Ms. And it is remarkable how often high school students sort of treat the coaches as a peer with their early communication. And I think most college coaches are looking for someone who recognizes that if this develops, it's going to be a coach-athlete relationship. It's not going to be a relationship of peers or friends. So err on the side of formality unless you're invited then to be more informal. And don't worry about writing the perfect message. Just provide an introduction. Provide a little information on who you are as an athlete, just basic information, height, weight, ergometer times, program that you row in, sweep, scull, how long you've been rowing. Some academic information, what your GPA is, weighted or unweighted. Just give them a couple of nuggets so that the coaches can get a sense of whether you're a reasonable candidate for them to engage with.
Yep, that's great. I know the next question is probably the $1 million question when it comes to college recruiting, and it's, well, my projected ERG score is.
Oh, please don't give me your projected ERG time. Please.
When I did my ERG score, I was sick, and I could only. How do you sell your ERG score when you're not breaking the world record? Because there's only a handful of those people out there.
Yeah, there are. Well, the one is to recognize that while the ERG time is important, and it is an early sorting mechanism for many college coaches, it's not the end all and be all. But at the same time, I think you'll hear all of my colleagues tell you, you got to own your ERG time. Okay, it is what it is. And, when people start talking about how, coach didn't let us test, or, I haven't been able to test for X number of months, well, if you think you can go faster, go faster. It's that simple. If you're a fitter, stronger athlete today, then get on the machine and show everybody else. Projected ERG times, it does not reflect well upon you. In that you're just sort of grasping at straws and talking about hope. And, as we often say, hope is not a strategy. So you hope to go that number, you hope to break that round figure, go out and do it. And conversely, if you don't have a particularly fast ERG time right now, maybe it's because you're on the smaller side and you're, and you wouldn't be expected to do as fast as some bigger people. So make sure we know your height and weight, or perhaps you're engaged in other sports or other activities, and you haven't devoted the time to rowing yet that you hope to devote when you get into college. That's good to know about. We can put it in a context.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you also, in one of the magazine articles, you talk about it's more than just the erg score, it's academics, it's your health, the performance of the program.
Much more so. And you know, that sort of gets into the one of the questions you asked about what the college coaches are looking for. And you know, it is the, you know, the erg time is, as you know, one person very invested in this process likes to say, the SAT of rowing. And it's valuable. It's relatively objective. And it does help to sort of distinguish people. But what it does is it sort of gets you into the door of being considered. And I'm not aware of any place where they're just flat out picking erg times for their team, or offering scholarships solely based on an erg time. You know, yeah, okay, if you're exceptional on the erg, you're going to get a lot of attention. There's no doubt about it. And if you're not up with your peers, if you're not in that range that the program typically enrolls, you've got an uphill climb for sure. But the erg is one piece of information. And if you're finding that you're struggling on that, certainly work with your current coach, your club coach, your high school coach, and try to develop greater fitness. And don't shy away from that. Get better. But then also highlight the other good things that you've got going for you. You know, highlight the things that you could bring to the team that would make you a valuable contributing member. Because I can tell you that if I were to rank the guys on our team in terms of their contributions to our success, it would not be a direct rank of erg times. That's for darn sure.
Yeah. And particularly, what would you say, particularly to those athletes that maybe, you know, they're a little bit smaller than the norm, or they come from smaller programs? How do you sort of keep you err on the side of being realistic, but not dismissing people because they're not quite there yet?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's why you know, regardless of where you are, you should still feel comfortable reaching out, and let the college coaches then counsel you on whether or not you're a good candidate for their program. If you rule yourself out, you don't leave yourself open to pleasant surprises. You don't leave yourself open to the possibility of something. And you know, I think that all of us are happy to hear from interested students. You know, there are times perhaps where we scratch our heads about how, you know, academically, is this person a good fit? How could they perhaps think that they're a good fit? But athletically, you know, the reality of it is most college programs, university programs are open to anyone in the student body coming out and joining the team. And so if you get in the door, if the admissions office finds a place for you, that even if you're slow on the ergometer, you're going to have a chance to show what you can do. Most places, not everywhere. So even the most successful names out there, the people that are winning the NCAAs, the people that are winning the IRAs and that sort of thing, trust me, there are plenty of people on most of those teams that are not elite level athletes. They may be elite in their dedication to the sport and their commitment to their team, but there are people that are not elite physiologically or elite in terms of their skills, but they still have a place, they still have an opportunity to row, and they still contribute.
Well, that's really helpful. And I think at the end of the day, the theme that you run through here in terms of you guys are looking for, what are the qualities? What give us a reason to include you, as opposed to, well, I was sick on this one day and the program's not very good and I'm the best person, and all those excuses tends to just cloud you. Yeah.
Please do not give me the excuses. Give me what you're doing to compensate or to overcome those hurdles that you speak about. You know, I think a lot of times when I interact with students, one of the mistakes that I see them making is they sort of have a take it or leave it attitude. They're sort of like, here I am, this is who I am today, and you know, am I good enough for you? And really the reality of it is that for the most part, the answer is no. You know, no. Today you're not, you know, but you have time and you can make yourself better. And if you decide that you really like this school or that school, and you know, if it's reasonable academically to aspire to that, then do the work, seek out opportunity, train, get better, and rise in the standings relative to your peers, because that's what really all of us are looking for on the collegiate side is, hey, here's the opportunity. This is what it's all about. Are you going to do the work to earn a place here? Whether that's whether that's help in the admissions process or whether that's financial assistance, are you going to earn that? Because the people that step up and really put in the work and try to improve themselves, they're demonstrating exactly the qualities that we want on our team. That's what we want our athletes to do. So when we see that in a recruit, that makes the recruit much more attractive than just somebody who's like, well, here's my ERG time, here's my GPA, am I good enough today?
For sure. And again, I think you speak to this, the really important line. There's a boundary there of what's too much, what's not enough. Are you selling? Are you telling the truth? Are you being genuine or authentic? And so from that standpoint, can you speak a little bit to, what are some of the appropriate guidelines for questions where you're not sort of, hey, Coach Manning, tell me your coaching philosophy and the reasons why I should join your school, through to, the yes, no sort of questions where the athlete really doesn't give you an opportunity to give them good information.
Yeah. The big thing I would say, it seems people always come in and they've sort of got some prepared questions, and Lord knows where they heard some of them. But, when somebody asks me what my coaching philosophy is, when I have a 17-year-old asking me what my coaching philosophy is, it strikes me immediately that this individual doesn't recognize the balance of power in this relationship. It's like, look, come visit, talk to the students, get a feel for things, take a look around, soak up as much as you can visually, with your ears, just get a sense in your gut. But it's not about my coaching philosophy. It's not these you don't have to create questions that you think make yourself sound more important or sound more knowledgeable than you. I always say, when somebody asks me my coaching philosophy, and obviously you've hit on a nerve here, I always like to ask a 17-year-old, well, what's your rowing philosophy? Yeah. It's just, each place is going to give you a little bit different answer of what they're trying to do. And ask a coach, what's the environment you're trying to create here? What are the competitive goals for your team? What do you hope your athletes acquire over the course of 4 years with you? And that'll get you a lot more information that's relevant to what's going to be important to you. But the kind of questions you want to ask are the ones that are not readily available. Please don't ask me about things that you can find on the admissions office website with one click. That just shows that you're not all that interested and you're just kind of filling airtime. But ask me about the things that I'm going to have a particular knowledge of that you wouldn't be able to acquire otherwise. What's your schedule look like in terms of how many practices? When do you practice? Do you go south? There's all kinds of various things. And at the same time, make sure you try to get in front of students, try to talk with students, because there are things that they can answer for you that the coach shouldn't be able to. I oftentimes, people ask me, well, what do your students do for fun on the weekend? And I'm like, do you really want me to tell you what they're doing for fun on the weekend? That's not my business. You want to talk to the students about that, right? Now, I can help you with how the application process works. I can help you with where you'd fit in on the team if you joined us. I can help you understand what kind of opportunity. There's lots of stuff for us to discuss, but there's some things that you're better off just talking to the students about, and you really should seek them out.
One of the questions that's come up, Bill, a couple of times, even before tonight, but also just now in what you're sharing, is how do you guys as coaches like to hear the word no? If an athlete you're interested in is going somewhere else, how do you like to hear that honest and very difficult answer to tell somebody?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's really in the student's best interest when they know they're not interested in a college, and they have, after starting, as I said, with a pretty expansive group, if they've narrowed it down and there's a college that keeps contacting you or keeps trying to get you on the phone or texting you and you're not interested in that college, it's absolutely doing them a favor to tell them so. And, the level of interest and the level of relationship that has developed sort of dictates how that should be done. If this is a situation where they've come in and sat down in your living room, or they've had you on an official visit, or you've gotten to know them, then give them the courtesy of a phone call. The sooner the better. You know, if this is just a place where you've had a lot of electronic communication, then send them an email just saying, hey, thanks very much. I really appreciate all the attention you've given me. But, you know, in consultation with my parents, we've sort of narrowed things down, and I'm going to be focusing my college search on other places. You don't have to give them a reason. You know, you don't have to. If there's a real clear reason about, oh, they don't have the major you're looking for, or you want to be somewhere in a different part of the country, or yeah, then by all means give them that. But you don't have to give them a reason. And if you know for sure you're not interested, do them the favor, do yourself the favor of sort of clearing that deck. And then you've got more energy, more time to focus on the places that are most interesting to you.
Yep.
Sure.
Another really good question here about best fit, and I think this is a great question that comes up of, how do you know, sort of, is it an intuitive thing? How do you know it's going to work out? And I'm sure you deal with.
You don't. You know?
Yep.
That's the thing. You don't. And you know, for us coaches, we're talking to these 17-year-olds, sometimes 16, sometimes 18, and we don't know if it's going to work out. We're doing our best to learn as much as we can about the individual and to educate ourselves, and talking with the people around the athlete, coaches, parents, school officials, perhaps. But at the end of the day, we don't know for sure. And the opposite is true. The reverse is true too, that you can do all the research you want and study up on colleges all you want and do the right things in terms of investigating and being thorough, and there's still no guarantee. You know, and I know that myself because I transferred. You know, I went off to one college. I thought it was the great thing. I thought everything was going to be ideal. It was what I wanted all along. And then lo and behold, I figured things out that it wasn't the fit that I needed. And, you know, and so I moved on. So perhaps I'm just trying to make sure, or minimize the number of people that make the mistake I made. But, you know, there is no guarantee at the end of the day. Now, having said that, most places will still serve you pretty well. So there seems to be this pressure that I have to pick the one best place. And I would maintain that the reality of it is that there are many, many places that would serve most people well, where they would be really happy, really engaged, get an education, life experiences that are going to set themselves up really well for after graduation. So it's not about picking the one. You know, it's not a marriage proposal.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking for places that are going to maximize the likelihood of working out, and there are quite a few of those for most of us.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess one of the themes that I keep hearing is it's really important to do your research, and part of that is just being pretty honest. If you do your research and you're not overcommitting, you're not undercommitting, you just try and be as upfront as you can. That answers the questions of, is this too much information? For coxswains, should they include all their race recordings? Should lightweights tell everything about their way and background? It's more about be sensitive to the fact that you guys are dealing with a lot of information, and you want to put yourself in the best, put your best foot forward.
Right. And the reality of it is if somebody is interesting to us and we don't have as much information as we would like to have, we're going to request that information. So if you don't need to overwhelm us. I mean, it's no joke. Last week, I got a 13-page resume from a 17-year-old. A 13-page resume. You know, I mean, I felt incredibly inadequate with my page and a half at my age. You know, so it's like, you know, keep it basic, keep it functional, and if what you provide to us gets us curious, we're going to ask for more. But if you overwhelm us with all these different race results and whatnot, then really what happens is the best things about you are getting lost in the weeds there, because we won't be able to pick that out so readily. So decide what is it that I want to highlight about myself? What are the best qualities that I have to bring to the table as a potential collegiate rower? And make sure that those stand out. Make sure that those are really easy for us to see. And then, as I said, if you're sort of matching up with what the college is looking for, then that college is going to do more to learn more about you, and they will learn more about you.
So, Bill, I know it's a important time right now as you're reaching out to different programs, different coaches and athletes are reaching out. How do you sift through the complexity of all that information? Because, like you say, if you've got 13 pages worth of information on your resume,
Right.
it's probably too much. And given that you guys are having to go through all these different applications, the advice sounds like put your best foot forward. But then when you're looking through all this, how do you sort of decipher what's a priority and what's a nice to have, but probably not necessarily critical to you showing interest in a candidate?
Well, thank God for Excel. Okay, so we slice it and dice it like a jitsu knife, and but at the end of the day, all of that's getting fed into who's going to enhance our team more than their peer. The tough thing for our place and where I've been fortunate to be is that there are more good people out there than we have room for. And so we're trying to find out who has a little bit better potential than somebody else. We're not trying to figure out who's good and who's bad. We're trying to figure out who's really, really good versus who's really good. And that will depend a lot, on what we need for our team. And most of us think of rowing as just, everybody's interchangeable because we're all doing the same thing. We don't need a goalie, we don't need a forward, we don't need a defenseman. And there's certainly a lot of truth to that. But the piece that we do need is we look real closely about, all right, who are we graduating in the next year or two, and what is that person bringing to our team? What's the character of those people that are going to graduate and leave us? And are we looking for people who are going to sort of enhance the community spirit of our team, and on top of making boats go fast? Are we looking for people who are going to be really good in terms of adding to leadership on campus and community service and helping our team as a well-respected organization in the athletic department and on campus? So there is a lot that goes into it. There's an awful lot that goes into it. We don't want to bring in 10 introverts. We don't want to bring in 10 extroverts. Yep. And there's a lot that the individual athlete really doesn't have any control over, and it's just whether they're a good fit for us in 1 year or a better fit at one of the other places in 1 year. And with that, you don't want to, if the college isn't sort of biting, if the college isn't getting all excited about you, it may well have nothing to do with you. It may have absolutely nothing to do with you. You could be perfectly acceptable, but they just have different priorities in that year. Or they've already found somebody who sort of fits the role that you would fill as well.
Well, that's great. That's great information. And I think the one thing that's coming across in what you're saying, but also some really thoughtful questions, is for these student athletes, there's a lot going on and they're trying to manage what they want to do, their parents, how to communicate with coaches, their own coaches. So what kind of advice can you give to that student athlete who's trying to negotiate all these moving parts, whether it's parents asking questions about scholarships, coaches, saying, what can we do to help? How do you sort of guide that? Because we understand that all athletes are in this complicated situation with a lot going on. So how do you advise and guide the athletes on that one?
Well, I think I really do emphasize to the athletes that this is a process that they need to own and that they need to take the lead on. Most of them are fortunate enough that they've got a supportive family around them and others, whether it's school officials or coaches. But, the communication should come from the athlete to the college. When you get down into the nitty gritty of things like money, whether it's financial aid, need-based financial aid, or whether it's athletic grant and aid scholarships, that's when mom or dad needs to get involved for sure. And that's an absolute must. When it comes down to, is it a situation where a college and an athlete make a commitment to one another with help in the admissions process being on the table? That to me is when a parent absolutely gets involved so that they have a very clear understanding of what's being expected of their child and what the child is going to get in return. But in terms of the general correspondence, the general updating, staying in touch, that really needs to come from the student athlete. There's no surer kiss of death than getting an email from mom telling me about how Johnny did in his race this weekend because Johnny's too busy to write. Well, if Johnny's too busy to write now as a high school student, he's not going to make it here. It's just that simple. He's just not going to make it here. So mom thinks she's doing Johnny a big favor, and in fact, she just torpedoed him entirely. So money issues, getting down to that level, that nitty gritty, that's where parents should be involved. But beyond that, it really is best if the student takes the lead.
Yep. Oh, that's great. That's great. I know, Patrick, you've been waiting patiently over there, and Bill, lots of great nuggets here. Patrick, I want to bring you into the conversation because I think you can add a great perspective on some of the technology elements, and as Bill's talking about, how do you do your research in a way that A, who you're talking to, but B, also, how do you get your name out there? How do you get, let's call it exposure, so that colleges and athletes are meeting at the right level, and I think that's a critical piece that Patrick, you can join us in on. I don't know if yeah, there we go, your mute's off. So tell us a little bit about Captain U and what you're doing there.
Yeah, Captain U is the new official sponsor of U.S. Rowing as a recruiting platform. And what they're doing is they're trying to create a centralized marketplace for coaches and athletes to gather to be able to communicate with one another. Right now, it's time consuming to go and look up all the universities and understand which coach am I supposed to talk to. And I think that's an important part of the process. But at the same time, Captain U will help you save some time there, because when you sign up and you create a profile, instead of having a sort of 13-page resume that Bill was talking to, you can kind of have it on a singular website where here's all the information. You can post videos and pictures of yourself and erg scores, and coaches will be able to track, right? With Captain U, one of the great things about their software is once these college coaches are saving the athletes that they're looking at, every time you update, the college coach will actually be notified that Johnny just updated his profile, and they will get that in their inbox. So I think that's a really great feature for the community that hasn't been around before, as opposed to trying to pick through every single update. And then from that standpoint, you're able to put yourself out there and see what coaches are searching for and understand, what type of traction are you getting with the profile you have. So it's a little bit, Captain U is a little bit of a LinkedIn and Facebook, right? It's a little bit of a LinkedIn page. On the other side, for coaches, they get a little bit of a Facebook news feed on each athlete as far as the updates. So you're kind of merging those two worlds there. And with the sponsorship of U.S. Rowing, every athlete from U.S. Rowing is getting an email, and you automatically get a free profile. And that's really helpful. And the coaches also get free profiles. So it's not a paid system where you have to worry about who's on there or who isn't. It's a better space than that. So the next part, Cam, I would say is when you're sort of trying to identify what you can do, and I will quickly, I was going to share my screen. How do I share mine here?
Yeah, you go for it, because there was just a quick question. Someone was asking for some information, so they couldn't hear it through the audio. But if you click on the share button, you should be able to
and then
give us a bit more info there. There you go.
I think you'll see here that this is the email feature, and you're able to see, this is sort of what we were talking about before, but you're able to add each college that you're interested in. So here in my profile, I've been able to click, okay, add all of these universities, and I've done so. And then, it sort of walks you through what the next steps are, which is great. It makes it simple on you. And when it comes time to sort of contact a school, you can come in here and you can go my schools and message a coach and, pick a school, and here's Greg Hughes, right? And, checking in. And it gives you a bit of a template that you're able to understand, what should I say? And I think this goes back to the professionalism that Bill mentioned, where you should err on the side of being professional and formal. And, this is an important part of the process where, with every young person, one of the challenges is how do I stay organized and understand who I'm communicating with? How frequently am I communicating with them? And, when do I need to follow back up? And I think one of the big pitfalls that Bill, I'm sure, would touch on is when someone gets the coaches confused, right? When all of a sudden it's, a John from one school and a John from another, or you're just mass emailing. That's something that's really discouraged and arguably the biggest mistake you can make. So, with Captain U, there's an opportunity to here where you can warehouse all of your emails and communication with coaches. You can also do this with your own personal email. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think staying organized and understanding how often you're communicating with coaches, what was your last update? And then, as Bill said in the very beginning, coming in here and being able to look at colleges and adding them and starting with a wider audience of who do you want to communicate with. Don't narrow it too early. I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Bill, what's your experience with a platform like this? Do you encourage this? Do you encourage the more direct? How do you react to this? And I know there are others out there, so tell us a little bit about your perspective.
I would say the perspective is for me, it's neutral. Like, I don't care how I hear from somebody. So if a platform like this works for the individual, they should use it. And they should not feel they have to use it in order to reach out to us, but they're not going to be thought less of because I know they're emailing a bunch of other coaches, or I'm not going to be, oh wow, they didn't personalize the message to us and talk about our unique place and some feature of us that you can't find elsewhere. Not at all. If this works for them, if this allows them to do what they want to do, if this allows them to get in touch and put themselves out there and make sure we know about them, then it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. But at the end of the day, I think as things get, as the process quickens and the list of schools that you're talking to gets more narrow, then you're going to want to make it more and more personal. But this is a great place to start and a great place to, I would say, spend probably the majority of your time during your college search. And it's only as you get really down at the very end, where you're going to be on the phone and whatnot, that you might find yourself drifting away from it.
Yep. So, I mean, it definitely strikes me that it's a great tool to be organized and have everything in one spot, but it's not the tool that's going to be organized. It's you're organized using the tool. And the second piece to that, I think, and Patrick, you mentioned this as well, to Bill's earlier point of being professional, but also not being just canned. It has to have an element of you, your authenticity, your personality, so that as coaches, you guys are able to look at the information that's being shared and go, oh, that person, I get a feel for that person, whether it's right or wrong. Rather, it being canned, you dismiss yourself immediately. So that probably speaks as well to the best.
Time, that comes over time, and again, you don't have to lead off that way, but if your statistics make you a good fit for the school, and then the school is going to want to get to know you better, and feel comfortable sharing who you are. And I can tell you with the students that we recruit to the point where we encourage them to apply and do what we can to help them get a place here. We're not deciding between erg times, and we're oftentimes not deciding between race results. We're deciding based upon, hey, we really like this person, and we think this person would be a terrific fit for us and would be a great person to spend 2 hours a day with 6 days a week. And if we don't know you, then there's no way that we can form that positive impression of you. So, as the process gets farther and farther along, make sure you give the coaches a chance to get to know you, and vice versa. You want to get to know the coaches and learn about them and how they operate and what makes them tick and how you'd feel as an athlete in their program. Two-way street.
Yep. So it definitely strikes me that developing a criteria of what you're looking for, rather than I like this university over that university, or that location over that location, or that coach over this, that each individual really needs to figure out, okay, if I get an offer from a couple of these, how am I going to make my decision, rather than I like this one over the other?
Yeah, I think it can go both ways, to be honest, though, Cam. I might disagree with you a little bit there. Sometimes it's in your gut,
Yeah.
sometimes that, rationally you can line things up, and there's some good things on both ends of the scale, and it just comes down to what's in your gut. And that's absolutely valid. That's absolutely valid.
Yep.
What I see and a lot of us see is just maybe just a little bit too much of a fixation on having to go to a school in a certain league, or having to go to a school with a certain name, or having to go to some criteria that others deem really important, but may not actually be important to your experience and your happiness. And that's why it's so valuable to start a broad-based search. And something like Captain U is super to manage that, because you're going to be looking at a lot of different places initially. And then, just, being open, you're 17, you're 16, you're 18, and you don't know what you want, and if you do know what you want, you're probably going to change your mind in the next 5 years anyway. So be open-minded, keep your eyes and ears open, and just see what comes to you. And the more you engage, the more likely you are to have a better understanding of each place.
And Patrick, let me throw that one back at you as well, because there's a lot of questions from people about, should I have how big should my list be? How much contact should I make? How many questionnaires should I fill out? Patrick, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think, Bill, and I think one of the things that we all agree on is that you do need to go to the website and fill out the questionnaire. And I think what students miss is it's an NC2A requirement for these athletic departments, or an IRA, that all the student athletes fill it out. So, and it also gives contact information should a coach want to call you or email someone else. So you do need to do both. This is not it's not a simple process. And when you're making a decision over the next 4 years of your life, you need to invest the time and energy to do it really well. And so, as far as the amount of schools to reach out to, I think the more you reach out to, in a way, you're going to hear back from certain coaches. And Bill really nailed it again earlier. He said so many great things, is that they will help you through the process. They will really give you some information. So you may not hear back from certain coaches based on vacation or regattas. But I think putting yourself out there is the first step, and then you'll grow more comfortable through the process, and you'll understand what are the requirements in order for me to achieve the level I need to achieve athletically in order to be on this team, right? And to understand where are you compared to your peers on a global level, because most of these coaches are recruiting on a global level, and that's an important thing to consider. So I think that, I would always recommend I recommend on a personal level, like I think you have 3 tiers. You sort of have the backup schools, the schools you really want to go to that you think are safe, and then the reaches. And each one of those could be 5 to 10 in each one of those. What you'll end up applying to is probably 5 or 6, maybe less. But you start with that sort of 3-tiered out, 30 schools, and then narrow it down as you go through the process and say what you like and don't like. And that way it takes a lot of time for sure, but you're making a big, big decision. And, I think it's important that you go through the process that way, so that, all of a sudden you're not 6 months, 12 months down the road and going, wait, I need to completely change course, or I missed something here. I didn't see that. And I think you'll have a broader view and then be able to make more informed decisions when you talk to coaches and visit campuses.
Yeah, that's great. Last question. It's about how much time do you guys normally spend in getting back to someone? Because I know that there's a bunch of questions here, like, oh my God, I haven't heard, or I've heard a lot. Does that mean they're going to offer me something? So we'll finish up on that question of how much time is there between contact and then when you respond, and then when the decision is actually being made. Bill, we'll start off with you.
Oh, well, wait. Well, contact to decision actually, as Patrick says, so much depends. I'll tell you this, like I coach men, we race at the IRA regatta. It's a 3-day regatta like the NCAA's. If you're writing me at the IRA regatta, one, you darn well better acknowledge that the IRA regatta is occurring at this time, okay? But don't be surprised if I don't get back to you right away. Recruiting is not what I'm doing when we're racing at the national championships. Conversely, sometimes if I'm sitting at my desk and something comes in and it's easier for me to hit reply immediately, then that's what happens. That doesn't mean that student is necessarily more attractive than other students. It just means they caught me at a good time. it is safe to say that if you are someone who the coach feels could really make a difference and is somebody who they could conceive of themselves getting behind, you're going to hear from them. Okay, you're going to hear from them. And, at some point, you might just have to accept, too, that if you get nothing but silence, that they're not interested. But if that's the case, I think it's well within reason for you to just write and say, Coach, I haven't heard from you in quite a while. Am I someone that you're interested in? And if not, what would I need to do to make you more interested? Put the question to them.
Yep.
Put the question.
That's great. Patrick, last word to you.
Yeah,
Timing.
I think on this topic, a quick funny story was a good friend was driving across the country to Nationals in Cincinnati, and he stopped a couple hours early because he had accumulated 40 emails that day. So instead of making it all the way there, he felt like he had to tackle those 40 emails. And I think the one point is that you're not going to hear back right away from a lot of these coaches due to the volume. But if you are someone that's trying to improve and someone that's younger, it may take a little bit longer, right? I mean, I think the seniors are going to get a quicker reply than the juniors. I think those that have further to go on their ERG score are probably going to be waiting longer on a reply. But having said that, you have to understand that following up and showing that you're genuinely interested in that school, when that ERG score comes down, they will have heard from you on several emails. And that's the bonus, is if you're at a certain ERG score, 755, and you don't hear back and you go 745, send another email. That's a great improvement there, and coaches want to hear it. So there's just a high volume there. They get back to as many athletes as they can, and they do have to prioritize the incoming, like who am I recruiting now? And coaches they're busy. They're busy with on the water stuff and compliance and everything else, but they are engaged in your process and making it successful for you as well.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.